haven't seen the connections between Jeff Epstein and Teneo and transport logistics and so forth in the State Department, I thought I'd just give a really quick review for those folks who've watched the channel. They know we've been talking about this for 3 years. But very simply, it's taking the information from the State Department and covert actions that are being done around the world and privatizing them for private gain. And the main conduit for that was a company called Teneo that Huma Abedin worked for, and then that information went over to Anthony Weiner and Jeff Epstein. So if you don't remember, here I am at the State Department, and I'll show you how they sync the Blackberries to get the information out of the State Department first.
There's the State Department flag there, and there is the famous 7th floor. There's the famous 7th floor where Huma and Hillary came out for coffee breaks from the skiff. All the mahogany row is what they call it, mahogany row, and then they would sync with whoever was right down here, Anthony Weiner or whoever or Imran, whoever.
So, and that's basically what James Comey confirmed, that the syncing of the Blackberries to each other was how the emails got onto Anthony Weiner's laptop. Now we'll move on to how Teneo used that information for pay-to-play. Okay, from here the Teneo story kind of moves from this guy in the middle here that you see. His name is Doug Band, and he is the body man for Bill Clinton during the first 2 terms of Bill Clinton's presidency. He's the key guy who was doing pay-to-play deals during that time. And then Hillary is kind of watching from the wings, getting ready for her chance to run for president. This sets up a fundamental rift at the Clinton Foundation between what I call the Bills and the Hills. And Doug Band here in the middle is certainly a Bill. And Doug Band here, you can see the National Review has tied him directly to Rockefeller. He ends up buying Rockefeller's house in New York City. And then, of course, he's very closely associated with Jeffrey Epstein. And the reason here is you want deniability. Every time Teneo does something in terms of overseas mining, for instance, they don't want any footprints. If Marc Rich is going to take advantage of some information, let's say about uranium in the Congo, we don't want to associate that with anybody at the State Department. You want to keep 0 footprint. You want Jeff flying people back and forth, whether it's weapons, whether it's different diplomats, etc., but you want 0 footprint. So Jeff Epstein basically was the way of zeroing out the footprint for Teneo. As I said, whether that meant drugs going in one direction or weapons in another, or whether it was mujahideen, etc. And the key way they used to cover this contraband or rat line traffic was through the use of diplomatic passports and diplomatic immunity. You can see Doug Band several times in his email talking about, can we get a few more dip passports for our trip to Africa? Okay, so one of the key companies that Teneo creates as a subsidiary is called 10X, which is a joint venture with Russia and basically ex-KGB agents who now have moved into the energy business. Most of the deals that 10X and Teneo do as joint ventures are either energy deals or weapons deals. And you can see here it's sort of a 50-50 joint venture with these ex-KGB folks. Club K is one example in our story. Operation Cassandra is another example. We have another example with Uranium 1, megatons to megawatts before that. So there's several examples here. We'll just follow one, which is megatons to megawatts, which is 10X. But you get the idea here. You're you're taking information or companies in the United States that might be involved with the Manhattan Project, let's say different companies involved in the uranium nuclear chain, a fuel cycle chain, and moving them, or taking companies that were involved in the fuel cycle chain in Russia and moving them to third-party locations that you control, whether it be Iran or UAE or some other place where you can privatize basically the investment that either Russia or the United States has made in these very, very expensive technologies, mainly around this uranium, or sometimes plutonium as well, these materials which can create submarines that can go under water all the way around the world. They can power nuclear satellites that never go dark, etc. Key technologies that are differentiators. You can make small portable nuclear power plants for backup power for key infrastructure, as well as military installations, etc. That's the focus of 10X, this joint venture between the Clinton Foundation and these, what we know as Russian oligarchs, but really they came from either a combination of organized crime in the Ukraine area or the combination with ex-KGB sort of as the head of these organizations. And this is the one that Jeff Epstein really focused on the most. Okay, so about 2 years ago, I went with my research partner, which I named Task Force. She was an ex-police officer. We actually went to these different fingerlings, if you will, of Teneo and 10X. And one of them was called Transport Logistics, this TLI. You can think of it almost as Teneo or 10X Logistics. And this was the trucking company that was involved in shipping all this uranium to the Soviet Union, or excuse me, the 10X, which was the creation of these ex-Soviet Union KGB guys and the people at Teneo at Clinton Foundation. So here I just show how closely associated TLI is to Teneo, and we actually do sort of a walk and talk at their actual facilities.
Fourth floor, 8161 Maple Lawn here in Fulton, about 7 or 8 miles from NSA, and is Daher TLI. Transportation Logistics. Daher is a Virginia company that took over Transportation Logistics. This is Marc Lambert's company, the one he ran for 20 years, running all of uranium, 5 continents all around the world. The key to the Uranium One story, the key to the cover-up, the key to the Mueller cover-up and attack dogs to try to cover that up. Now, what else is in this building? We're on the 4th floor, okay? Got in on a Sunday, which, task force, got us in on a Sunday. So we're gonna go down to the 3rd floor. Now, there's a guy I ran into, a guy named Jason Miller. And I've run into him probably 6 or 7 times since I've been in Washington, D.C., walking up and down Pennsylvania Avenue. And I'm like, Jason, you work for the Trump campaign. You were an attorney for the Trump campaign. Why am I bumping into you again? I don't know. Jason, you're famous. I'm a nobody. Why am I running into you yet again for the 7th time here on Pennsylvania Avenue? Hey, I don't know. So we looked at other people that were here in Teneo. The answer is Teneo. We're going to find it here in a second, but the answer is Teneo. Jason works for Teneo. Jason Miller is an attorney for Teneo.
Teneo, Clinton Foundation.
Teneo, Doug Band, Teneo, in the same building as Transportation Logistics.
So there you have it. Basically a very small amount of effort to doing a cutout for Teneo with this transportation logistics. We basically follow these cases all the way to ground, actually going to the actual documents. And I can just show you one quick example of that. But our investigation is definitely not just at this associative level. We go the next level to the document level, which I'll show in the next slide. Okay, and some of these Jeff Epstein, Doug Band videos, the 10X, Teneo videos are a little bit old, so the production quality is not quite there, but the data is every bit as valid, and the documents are certainly valid. This is about 2 years ago. I'll play this 10X Epstein video.
This relationship with Uranium One goes back to 2009. The bribery goes back to 2009. The CFIUS decision is in 2010. So the bribery precedes, and the FBI's knowledge of the bribery and the informant precedes the approval of selling 20% of U.S. uranium overseas. So that's the first question that has to be answered here with this is, why did the CFIUS get approved? And we're going to look for those documents. Again, I don't really trust in the human testimony very much. I go right to the documents first, and then let the humans figure out, what their testimony is going to be after the documents come out. This is a good example. I published the Urenco, I believe, Chaguri, who's a longtime Clinton donor, I think in the $100 million to $1 billion. I think he actually committed $1 billion. I think he's going to be involved with Urenco. They're shipping quite a bit to Urenco in 2008 and 2009, about 1 million kilograms, which is quite a bit. About a quarter of that is going to 10X in Russia. But then in 2015, it makes this huge jump of 128 times jump, or over 100 times jump, for this company called 10x. And they also increased by 80% their amount that they're sending to Urenco. So it's sort of constantly growing, but then there's this huge spike 2015. Now, is that for Hillary planning for her election, for a war chest for her election? I believe it is. That's where we really start bringing in a whole bunch of people from overseas to do the trucking. Now, this is another interesting person here, this guy called Krupnik, and he's kind of made out to be Greek, but he really isn't. He's Russian. His wife is Russian. I think Anna is his daughter. And this is his own petition in Maryland District Court for citizenship, which they are then awarded, I believe, suing Chertoff. So again, when Hillary's saying that there's no Russia connection, these people are actually running the Krupniks, or Pavel Krupnik here is actually running the United States Enrichment Corps. So this is Krupnik's email at United States Enrichment Corps, and then of course he's running the ports there at United States Enrichment Corps. And his job is Director of International Programs at United States Enrichment Corps. Now, I believe what he's actually doing is he's recruiting truckers. He's going to be recruiting as Becky truckers or different truckers along the routes. But he obviously speaks Russian, and he is running international programs at USC, and he is running the ports at USEC.